Well, I have a story to tell you, and it's an all too familiar story. Somebody's cruising along, living their life, and all of a sudden they start feeling bad, really bad. They can't eat, they're losing weight like crazy, they may even be getting a little jaundice. So they go to the doctor, run a few tests, and before long the diagnosis comes back. It's pancreatic cancer. It's just horrible. It's devastating to them and their families. And despite the best efforts from the doctors, before you know it, they're gone. This story, I realize it may be very personal to some people in this room, because it is all too familiar. Well, I'm Tony Royer, CEO of Advanced Chemotherapy Technologies, and we're working hard to change this story. Pancreatic cancer is so deadly in part because it's caught at a very late stage. Here's an example of a tumor, and this tumor would grow unknown until it got large enough to block the bile duct or the pancreatic duct shown on the left side. That would stop the enzymes from flowing into your digestive tract and cause the symptoms that I talked about. But by the time it's gotten that big, it's also typically grown into the surrounding blood vessels, specifically the superior mesenteric artery and vein at the bottom, which supplies blood to your upper intestines. If it's gotten into those vessels, it makes surgical removal of the tumor impossible because you can't take out those vessels. Some of the facts around pancreatic cancer. There's about 53,000 cases in this country every year. The 5-year survival rate is 7%. We all know it's a horrible disease. And even though that surgical removal of the tumor is the best chance these patients have, only 15% of them will progress to surgery because of the reasons I talked about. Now, some of them are metastatic, but the patients that we're really looking to focus at are what's called locally advanced non-resectable. They have a single tumor that's grown so large and it's gotten into the blood vessels and can't be removed. And we're doing that by an innovation that was developed at the University of North Carolina. It's a local drug delivery system that delivers drugs directly into the pancreas using iontophoresis. Now, iontophoresis, for those of you who don't know, is the carrying of drugs into tissue with electric current. It's been used for many years for topical applications, but we're the first company to ever use this for delivering drugs to internal organs, and our IP is around that. So specifically, we developed a device that would be implanted laparoscopically onto the pancreas, sutured in place, and then would have a port coming out to the patient's abdomen. The patient would go home to recover for a week, and then come back to the hospital infusion center and get hooked up to the chemotherapy infusion pump, a DC controller that we're making, and a counter electrode would be placed on the patient's back to complete the circuit. They'd sit in the infusion chair for an hour, get the chemotherapy, and then go home. After 8 weeks of treatment, they would come back in for re-imaging to see if their tumor is shrunk enough to be removed. We've conducted a number of preclinical studies at the University of North Carolina, both large animals and dogs, looking at PK and drug delivery, and in small animals in a patient-derived xenograft mouse model, which I'm showing you the data here. So on the left-hand side are our two controls where nothing or saline was delivered. And in this patient-derived xenograft model, those tumors continued to grow 700% over the course of the study. We then took an existing generic drug that's used for pancreatic cancer treatment, gemcitabine, and we infused it for the IFU systemically. And it did slow the growth of the cancer. But the cancer still grew over 2 times in these models. We then took the exact same drug and administered it with our iontophoresis device, and the tumor shrunk by 40%. That was unprecedented tumor regression in these types of models. It resulted in 4 publications out of the University of North Carolina in the start of this company. And I can tell you, going back to these patients, we hear from them all the time. They found these studies, they're desperate for solutions. I would be too. And it keeps us motivated, working every day to try to help these patients. We took this to the FDA, and I think it's motivating the FDA too, because out of all the meetings I've ever had with the FDA, it was the most productive one I've ever had. We went to understand how they would treat this from a regulatory standpoint, what the clinical pathway would be. So it's a combination product regulated under the drug pathway as a 505(b)(2). Because it's under the drug pathway, it will qualify for orphan drug status. And more importantly, we presented a clinical plan, and we were very pleased with the results that it was a modest clinical plan, with less than 300 patients overall to get this to approval. We took that, and then we were able to raise some grant money from the National Cancer Institute, thanks to the Eva Garland folks that are in the room. We raised some private angel money, and we were able to secure a loan from the North Carolina Biotech Center. And that's funding us through our first human clinical trial, which we will start next year. So if I think about the advantages of our technology, it really starts with this local delivery that we can pump in higher therapeutic doses and get lower toxicity, but get better treatments, which has led us to being able to target precisely the area that needs this chemotherapy and given us this unprecedented tumor regression. What that really we're able to do with that is to save vital tissues. I talked about the superior mesenteric artery and vein, and those are important in pancreatic. But you can imagine other types of cancer where vital tissues are important to save. And in our preclinical work, we've shown the ability to deliver both existing drugs like gemcitabine and FOLFIRINOX and cisplatin, and experimental drugs. So when we look at the market opportunity for this, our beachhead market is pancreatic cancer, and specifically those locally advanced non-resectable patients. So you take that 53,000 number down to 24,000, which gives a total addressable market in that patient population of at least 700 million. We've also worked with our team at surgical oncologists at UNC to identify other types of cancers that could benefit from local delivery, lower systemic toxicity, and tissue preservation, and I've listed a few of those on the screen. So when you sum all those up, the total addressable market in all these categories would be $5 billion. We've put together a great team. We have world-class founders, research scientist Jen Janier, University of North Carolina, Jody Simone, who's been very prolific in his life. Bill and I have extensive product development experience with over 45 years combined. And we've got a great team at UNC ready to start this first in human clinical trial with Dr. McRae and Madaka. So in summary, we know pancreatic cancer patients have a dire unmet need. We've shown some unprecedented tumor regression in a very relevant model and have a clear regulatory and clinical path with the FDA with a significant market opportunity. But just as important, we have this concept for local delivery for higher therapeutic doses and lower systemic toxicity that can be put to work toward multiple opportunities in cancer and beyond. So we're looking for investors and strategic partners that would like to help us with our mission, and that is to give these patients more time. Thank you very much, SC Bio.